G'day, hi, and welcome. All right, so I'm a very fortunate man to have all these really awesome guitars. Yes, I'm in debt for some of them. They'll take a little while to pay off. That one's paid off now. That one's almost paid off. This one will take a little while to pay off, and there might be another one coming fairly soon, and that might be it for guitars for a little while. But I got quite a few within the year, and I'm pretty happy with that. Now, the question here is, if someone going to ask me, and I've been asked questions like this before, like A, why do you have so many guitars, and B, if you could only keep one, which one would it be? And that B question is always the trickiest one, right? So A, the why do I have so many guitars? Different guitars do different things. The H string doesn't do what the SG3 does, and yeah, the SG61 reissue and the SG3 are very similar. The two Jacksons are very similar. The two extended range guitars, the PRS, that beautiful PRS there, that's my newest of the collection. Um, that one 26 and a half scale, the H string 26 and a half scale. These two guitars are, they leap forward you into the future. It's a different guitar sound. So why do I have so many different guitars? Well, to try to get as many different sounds as possible. This, I got it because it has a Floyd Rose, and this was going to be a jam night guitar, and it probably still will be a jam night guitar. But then when you got these things, if the place is nice enough, I'd rather bring one of these out. Uh, you know, you can buy them to look at them, or you can actually play them live. There's a risk and reward to everything. So, uh, a bar that you're kind of questioning the establishment, yeah, you play a guitar like this there until you know it's a safe place to play, and then you bring out something like this. A really good paying gig, you might bring out something like this. Okay, so we'll start with the H string just because it's the most different here next to the bass, of course. But the H string is a totally different dynamic of guitar playing for me. It doesn't make sense in standard tuning uh, as it does in drop tunings. I haven't done a lot of drop tunings with it. It's one of those guitar you got to kind of like relearn how to play guitar. And you have to think differently because it's just a weird machine. It's hard to explain, all the weird little nuances of it, but it just does a different thing. But it doesn't do everything, right? So if I could only keep one guitar, I would love it to be an H string, but the H string does not fulfill all these other guitars. Like, it doesn't replace these other guitars. It's its own thing. So it wouldn't be the 8 string. Now, my best playing guitar that I've ever owned, and probably one of the best playing guitars I've ever played on this planet, out of the thousands of guitars I've probably tried in music stores over years, and that is guitar number 50. I'm 50 years old, so I've had a guitar for every year of my life, and many at the same time, right? I didn't buy a guitar every year, but sometimes I buy a couple of guitars for a year or two, and then I don't buy anything for like a decade, right? Um, but that's the best playing guitar. That's one of the best Gibsons I've ever played. It is really, really, really good. The action on that thing is it's impeccable. It's just a phenomenal guitar to play. It's not a Stratocaster, even with the three pickups. It'll never do the Stratocaster thing. It sounds more like a Les Paul than it does an SG, to be honest with you. It's a little bit thicker because it's the SG standard, chassis on it, and I do a tabletop on it, so I won't get into all the specs. But that guitar, when I bought it, it wasn't the versatility I thought it was going to be, but it was something different. And I've played just this guitar for the past 18 years. At one point, this was the only electric guitar I owned, and trust me, need not want. If somebody said you were never going to be able to buy another guitar again in your life, and that's the only one you could ever have, uh, you wouldn't be hurting. It kind of does everything well. SGs are like that. They're kind of jack of all trades. So you can get away with the country stuff. You can get away with the blues stuff. You can get away with the rock stuff. You can get away with the jazz stuff. You can even get away with, fairly heavy metal and drop tunings. It doesn't master any one of these areas, but it does it so well that in the mix you would probably be able to get away with it. Now, getting to this guitar, this brings me back into the future. What am I doing for time here? Always got to keep an eye on my time. This guitar, the concept behind this guitar is the same concept as this, only I'm more, if you haven't figured out, I'm more for fixed bridges because fixed bridges just, they intonate better, they sound better, they sustain better, they play better. But it's nice to have a razzle dazzle trick guitar too. And that's basically what this guitar is. I won't go on the JS32 too much. This is the underdog here, but don't get me wrong. If this is the only guitar you can ever buy, for most people, like anything, if you can't play well on this guitar, it's not the guitar. This guitar plays exceptionally well. And again, with all these guitars, which are pretty much, these are all professional guitars, but a professional could play this guitar well enough that the audience wouldn't notice the difference in the tonal qualities and stuff like that. But that said, that guitar takes you to a different level. Back in the 90s, I had a Hammer Diablo, which I sold off because it, if you want to destroy a guitar, play it live, right? And what am I doing for time here? Yeah. But I missed that sound, right? So I wanted a modern sounding guitar. This is more of a classic sounding guitar. Same with the 61 reissue, which we'll talk about that one in a second. This brings me back into the modern sound. So you want a thrash metal sound. The only thing with this guitar is it's pedal to the metal all the time with those Duncan distortions. Those have got to be the most aggressive pickups. Not the hottest pickups in the world, but trust me, they are really hot. It sounds like it's going to blow up my Hot Rod Deluxe every time I play it. I can pretty much play it through the crate with compression on the, but you could, the distortion that comes out of this, that this guitar can push is just, it's ridiculous. Very fun guitar. So for a modern guitar, if this was the only guitar if you were stuck with this guitar forever and a day and you couldn't afford another guitar in your life, you would love it if you never needed to play clean. Although it sounds great clean with the Alder body and all that, it's just you would either have to swap out the pickups or lower them down enough to kind of tame them a bit. Because this is, again, it's a pedal to the metal. It's kind of a one-trick pony in that sense. I love the guitar, don't get me wrong, and I wish I could tell you it could do everything. Mind you, if you put in more mellow pickups, but then that would take the fun away a bit, and put a push-pull pot on there, yeah, you could probably get some really stellar clean sounds out of it. But that said, that's usually not why you buy a guitar like that. That's usually to rip people's faces off with, the aggression that it gets. The punch, that's the punchiest guitar I've ever owned. It is so thrash metal. It's amazing. Now let's go to the 61 reissue. Of course, I got a nice, beautiful tabletop of that. That's a circa 2007 one. And that guitar has been my dream guitar since I first tried one back in 1994, whenever, 92 or 94, whenever they started to reissue them. They had the 62 reissue, and then this came out. And this was kind of the original. They were originally called Les Pauls, and some would argue that the SG actually came out in 1958, but the SG was named in 61. It has a lot to do with Les Paul. Some not wanting his name on that guitar. They didn't want to call it a Les Paul, right? And some of it he was going through a divorce. Some say because he was going to a divorce, they didn't want to, have that complication of his guitars, basically. They just renamed the guitar SG for solid guitar. Now the last, and that's been my favorite guitar ever, right? So like that SG, it's still more of a vintage guitar, does everything well. It doesn't master any one thing, but heavy metal was pretty much created on an SG, just so you know. And yes, you can play metal with them. Just, you might want to swap out the pickups if you want a modern sound. Now, the last guitar here, let's see if we can wrap this up really quick. We can wrap this up really quick. Is the newest guitar that I got, and again, there might be another one showing up fairly soon, another guitar. It'll be a surprise what it is, but this one is probably the coolest guitar I've ever owned, in the sense of what it can do. It's a 7-string. It's a Holcomb PRS 7-string, SBN 7 SE model. SE, I think somebody said it standard for a student edition. If that's a student guitar, that's a hell of a teacher, that's for sure. Great guitar. This guitar is pretty much flawless, and it plays really, really well. It's a little harder to play because of the 26.5-inch scale length, but I'll never get like SG type playability out of that guitar, but it plays extremely well. It plays like you can sweep pick on it. You can you just got to work a little harder. But the sound of it, that baritone sound, it's 7 strings better than the 8 strings. And that's my newest guitar, and it's very modern, and those are the hottest pickups I've ever. The Alpha and Omega pickups are extremely high output. They're not as high mid-cut as the Duncan Distortion SH6s, but they're a lot clearer. Both pickups are very clear, but those are a lot clearer, but they're just really ridiculous output. Now, out of all these cool guitars, I know what you're asking or thinking. If you could only keep one, and that was it. Which one would you keep and why? Well, again, the guitar I'm taking to the grave and the guitar that I'd take to the moon or Mars with me would be the SG61 reissue, because it's been my favorite guitar forever and a day. But there's a caveat here. That's my like supermodel dream guitar, right? It might not be yours, but it is mine. However, if a band said, Reg, we need you to do everything, and we need you to do everything well, and the fact that I'm more of a modern player, I think it would be the Holcomb 7-string. I honestly, because it seems to Holcomb 7-string better than the Jackson RR5T, Jackson RR5C. Although if I was just playing metal and nothing but metal, yeah, that guitar all the way. But if I had to do everything, it does everything a little bit better than the SGs do everything, except for that doesn't do classic. So the question is, do you want this guitar that does everything but from a classic stance a bit more, or this guitar that does everything from modern? That's the question. All right, there he goes. So, oh wow, all right, have yourselves a great day, eh? Let me know what you guys think.